At a busy airport, the kind where people rush around with suitcases and announcements echo through the halls, there was a young woman named Mia. She wasn't just another traveler passing through. She worked at a small cafe near Gate 34. It wasn't her dream job. She wanted to be a journalist, but it paid the bills while she chased bigger dreams. On this particular day, though, something unusual caught her attention. Mia was wiping down tables when she noticed a man sitting by himself at one of the corner booths. He looked different from most travelers. For starters, he wore an expensive-looking suit that screamed success. His watch gleamed under the fluorescent lights, and his leather bag had that polished sheen only high-end brands carried. But what really stood out was how everyone around him seemed to give him space, like they instinctively knew he was someone important. Unbeknownst to Mia, this was Adrian Langley, a self-made billionaire who had built a tech empire from scratch. His company, Neuralink, was famous for creating cutting-edge artificial intelligence systems used worldwide. People whispered about him in business circles, calling him a genius and a visionary. To Mia, however, he was just another customer sipping coffee before boarding his private jet. As Mia continued working, two men nearby caught her eye. They weren't dressed as sharply as Adrian, but their behavior made her curious. They kept glancing toward him, talking in hushed tones. At first, she thought nothing of it. Maybe they were fans or employees trying not to disturb him. But then she overheard bits of their conversation. Words like wiring and fuel line floated into her ears, and suddenly her stomach tightened. Something didn't feel right. She tried to focus on her work, brushing off the nagging feeling. After all, why would anyone want to harm someone? Like Adrian? Still, the words lingered in her mind. When one of the men casually walked closer to Adrian's table, pretending to check his phone, Mia felt a chill run down her spine. Her instincts screamed louder than ever. Something is wrong. The boarding announcement for Adrian's flight came over the intercom, snapping her back to reality. Passengers began gathering their belongings and heading toward the gate. Adrian stood up too, tucking his laptop into his bag. That's when Mia acted without thinking. Dropping the rag she'd been using to clean the counter, she bolted across the crowded lounge, weaving between chairs and startled travelers. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice ringing out above the noise. "Your plane was sabotaged." Everyone froze. Conversations halted, heads turned, and Adrian stopped mid-step, his sharp gaze locking onto hers. For a moment, the entire terminal went silent. Security guards rushed over, asking what was going on. Mia quickly explained what she'd heard, the suspicious talk about wiring and fuel lines, and pointed out the two men she'd seen earlier. Adrian listened intently, his expression unreadable. Though he didn't say much, his body language told Mia he believed her. Within minutes, security escorted him away from the gate and investigators boarded his private jet. What they found confirmed Mia's fears. The plane's fuel system had been tampered with. If Adrian had taken off, the sabotage would have caused a catastrophic failure mid-flight. News spread quickly through the terminal. Passengers murmured about how close they'd come to witnessing disaster, and reporters started showing up to cover the story. Meanwhile, Adrian pulled Mia aside, wanting to know more about the woman who had saved his life. "I don't understand," he said, his tone calm but intense. "Why did you speak up? You could have stayed quiet." Mia shrugged, still catching her breath. "I don't know. I guess I just couldn't ignore it." Her answer surprised him. Most people would have hesitated, worried about looking foolish or getting involved. But Mia hadn't thought twice. She simply followed her gut, driven by a mix of curiosity and courage. Adrian found himself intrigued, not just by her bravery, but also by her humility. Despite saving his life, she didn't ask for anything in return. No reward, no recognition, nothing. Before leaving, Adrian handed her his business card. "You've earned more than my thanks," he said sincerely. "If there's ever anything I can do for you, don't hesitate to call." Mia accepted the card, tucking it into her pocket. She doubted she'd ever use it. How could someone like her, a struggling barista with big dreams but little means, ever need help from a billionaire? Little did she know, their paths were far from finished crossing. In fact, this chance encounter was only the beginning of a much larger story. one that would test both their courage and their trust in ways neither could have imagined. For now, though, Mia returned to her shift, replaying the events in her head. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind a strange mix of pride and unease. Had she done the right thing? Would things have turned out differently if she hadn't acted? These questions lingered as she served customers and cleaned tables, unaware of the whirlwind of events waiting just around the corner. After the chaos at the airport settled down, Mia went back to her normal life. She returned to her tiny apartment where the walls were decorated with clippings of articles she hoped to write someday, and sticky notes filled with ideas for stories that no one had ever read. Life moved on, but the memory of what happened lingered in her mind like a shadow. She kept replaying the scene over and over again. How she'd shouted across the terminal, how Adrian had looked at her with those piercing eyes, and how everyone had stared as if she'd just done something impossible. It wasn't every day you saved a billionaire's life, after all. But despite the whirlwind of attention at the airport, Mia felt oddly disconnected from it all. She wasn't looking for fame or gratitude. She had acted because it felt right. Still, part of her wondered if she'd hear from Adrian again. A few days later, while Mia was serving coffee at the cafe, a man walked in wearing a suit so sharp it practically glowed under the fluorescent lights. He scanned the room until his eyes landed on her. It took a second for Mia to recognize him without the crowd of assistants and cameras surrounding him like before. This time, Adrian Langley was alone. "Do you have a minute?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. Mia nodded, wiping her hands on her apron. "Sure, let me just finish up here." Once she handed off the last order to another barista, she led Adrian to a quiet corner table near the window. The sunlight streamed in, casting golden streaks across the table. For a moment they sat in silence, both unsure how to start. Finally, Adrian broke the ice. "I wanted to thank you properly," he said, leaning forward slightly. "What you did, not many people would have had the courage to step in like that." Mia shrugged, feeling a little uncomfortable with the praise. "I didn't think about it. I just knew something was wrong." "That's exactly why I'm here," Adrian replied, his tone serious now. "You saw something others missed. You trusted your instincts when most people wouldn't have dared. That kind of intuition, it's rare." Mia shifted in her seat, unsure where this conversation was going. Was he just being polite? Or was there more to it? Adrian continued. "Look, I know we don't know each other well, but I owe you my life. If there's anything I can do to repay you, consider it done. Anything at all." Mia blinked, taken aback by the offer. A billionaire was sitting across from her, promising to grant her any wish. It sounded like something out of a movie, but instead of excitement, she felt a pang of doubt. What could she possibly ask for? Money? Fame? Those things seemed hollow compared to the life she was slowly building for herself. "I appreciate it," Mia said carefully, choosing her words. "But honestly, I didn't do it expecting anything in return. I just reacted." Adrian studied her face, clearly impressed by her honesty. Most people would have jumped at the chance to cash in on such an opportunity. But Mia wasn't like that. There was something genuine about her, something real, and that intrigued him even more. "Well," Adrian said with a small smile, "if you change your mind, let me know. In the meantime, take this." He slid his business card across the table. "It's got my direct number. No assistants, no gatekeepers, just me." Mia picked up the card, running her thumb over the embossed letters. It felt heavier than it should, like it carried some kind of promise she couldn't quite put into words. She tucked it into her pocket, still unsure whether she'd ever use it. As Adrian stood to leave, he paused and turned back to her. "By the way, I heard you're interested in journalism. Is that true?" Mia nodded, surprised he even remembered that detail. "Yeah, it's what I really want to do. I've been freelancing a bit, but it's hard to get noticed." Adrian's lips curved into a thoughtful smile. "Maybe we'll find a way to help with that. Talent like yours deserves a platform." With that, he walked out of the cafe, leaving Mia staring after him. Her heart raced, not because of the vague promises he'd made, but because of the possibilities they hinted at. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to dream a little bigger. Maybe, just maybe, her big break wasn't as far away as she thought. But life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. Over the next few weeks, strange things began happening. One evening, Mia came home to find her apartment door slightly ajar. At first, panic gripped her. Had someone broken in? She cautiously pushed the door open, heart pounding, only to discover that nothing seemed missing. Everything was exactly where she'd left it, yet the unsettling feeling stayed with her. Then came the phone calls. Late at night, when the world outside was quiet, her phone would ring. Each time, she'd pick it up, only to hear heavy breathing on the other end before the line went dead. The calls grew more frequent, gnawing at her nerves. She tried blocking the number, but it always changed. And then one morning she found a note slipped under her door. Written in blocky, uneven handwriting were the words, "Stay out of things that don't concern you." Fear crept into Mia's chest like a cold hand gripping her heart. Whoever had sabotaged Adrian's plane knew she'd interfered, and now they were targeting her. Suddenly, saving Adrian's life didn't feel like a heroic act anymore. It felt like a dangerous gamble, one that might cost her everything. Desperate and terrified, Mia pulled out the business card Adrian had given her. She hesitated for a moment, staring at the digits printed neatly on the glossy surface. Calling him felt like admitting defeat, like asking for help she didn't deserve. But deep down, she knew she couldn't handle this alone. Taking a deep breath, she dialed the number. To her surprise, Adrian answered almost immediately. "Mia?" His voice was sharp, alert. "Is everything okay?" "No," she admitted, her voice trembling. "Something's wrong. I think I'm in trouble." There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. Then Adrian spoke, his tone calm but urgent. "Tell me where you are. I'm sending someone to get you." Before Mia could protest, a sleek black SUV pulled up outside her building within minutes. Two men in suits escorted her inside, their movements precise and professional. As they drove her to safety, Mia realized she'd stepped into a world far beyond anything she'd imagined. Saving Adrian's life hadn't just changed his fate, it had changed hers too. And now, there was no turning back. The moment Mia stepped into Adrian's secure estate, she felt like she'd entered another world. The property was tucked away behind tall iron gates and surrounded by lush greenery, a fortress hidden from prying eyes. Inside, the house was sleek and modern, with glass walls that let in sunlight and offered breathtaking views of the surrounding hills. But despite its beauty, there was an air of tension, a reminder that Mia wasn't here for a vacation. Adrian greeted her personally, his expression serious but warm. "You're safe now," he said as they sat down in a cozy living room. "But I need to understand what happened. Tell me everything." Mia took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. She recounted the strange events, the open door, the anonymous phone calls, the ominous note, and watched as Adrian's jaw tightened. He didn't interrupt her once, letting her finish before speaking. "This isn't random," he said finally, his voice low and measured. "Whoever did this is sending a message. They know you saved my life, and they're trying to scare you off." Mia nodded, though the weight of his words made her stomach churn. She had suspected as much, but hearing it out loud made it feel real, terrifyingly real. "What do they want?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Adrian leaned back in his chair, his sharp eyes narrowing as if piecing together a puzzle. "They want silence. Whoever sabotaged my plane doesn't just want me out of the way. They want to erase anyone who gets in their path. You became a threat the moment you spoke up." The realization hit Mia like a punch to the gut. All her life she'd been an ordinary person, blending into the background, unnoticed by the world. Now suddenly, she was caught in the crosshairs of people willing to kill to protect their secrets. It was surreal, overwhelming, and downright terrifying. "I didn't ask for this," she muttered, more to herself than to Adrian. "I just reacted." "I know," Adrian replied, his tone softening. "And that's why we're going to fix this. together. For the first time since the nightmare began, Mia felt a flicker of hope. Adrian wasn't just some distant billionaire. He was someone who understood what was at stake. More importantly, he seemed determined to stand by her side no matter how dangerous things got. Over the next few days, Mia settled into a routine at the estate. Adrian introduced her to his team, a group of experts in cybersecurity, private, investigation, and personal protection. They worked tirelessly to track down whoever was behind the threats, combing through surveillance footage, tracing phone records, and analyzing every scrap of evidence Mia could provide. At first, Mia felt out of place among them. These were professionals trained for high-stakes situations, while she was just a barista-turned-journalist wannabe. But Adrian insisted she stay involved, pointing out that her instincts were sharper than anyone else's. "You saw something we all missed," he reminded her one evening. "That makes you invaluable." Slowly, Mia began to embrace her role in unraveling the mystery. She spent hours poring over documents with the team, sharing insights she hadn't even realized she had. Her knack for noticing small details, the kind of thing that made her good at writing stories, proved surprisingly useful. Together, they started connecting the dots, uncovering a trail that led deeper into the shadows of Adrian's world. As they dug further, Mia learned about the darker side of Adrian's success. His company, Neuralink, wasn't just a tech giant, it was a target. Rival businesses had been trying to sabotage it for years, desperate to steal its groundbreaking technology. Some resorted to espionage, others to bribery, and a few to outright violence. Adrian had always managed to stay one step ahead, but this latest attempt on his life was different. It wasn't just about destroying Neuralink anymore. It was personal. One evening, as Mia and Adrian reviewed the findings in his study, he shared a piece of information that sent chills down her spine. "We think there's someone inside the company feeding these people information," he said, his voice heavy with frustration. "Someone close to me." The revelation shook Mia. Betrayal was one thing, but betrayal by someone Adrian trusted? That cut deeper than any external threat. She could see the toll it was taking on him, the sleepless nights, the lines etched into his face. For all his wealth and power, Adrian carried burdens most people couldn't imagine. "You don't have to go through this alone," Mia told him softly. "Whatever happens, I'm here." Her words seemed to catch him off guard. For a moment, he looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Gratitude, maybe, or something else entirely. Then he gave a small, weary smile. "Thank you," he said simply. Their partnership grew stronger with each passing day. What started as gratitude evolved into mutual respect, and eventually, something neither of them expected: trust. In a world where everyone had an agenda, Mia's honesty stood out. She didn't care about money or fame. She cared about doing the right thing. And that meant more to Adrian than he could put into words. But as the investigation progressed, so did the danger. One night, Mia woke to the sound of footsteps outside her guest room. Heart racing, she grabbed the flashlight she kept by her bed and crept toward the door. Before she could react, 2 guards appeared, assuring her it was just a routine patrol. Still, the incident left her shaken. Adrian found her later, sitting in the kitchen with a cup of tea, staring blankly at the wall. "You okay?" he asked, concern written all over his face. "I hate feeling like a prisoner," she admitted, her voice trembling. "Even if it's for my own safety." He pulled up a chair beside her, his presence grounding her. "I get it, but we're close. I can feel it. Once we find whoever's behind this, you'll be free again." Free. The word echoed in Mia's mind. She wanted nothing more than to return to her quiet life, to write stories that mattered without fear of retribution. But deep down, she knew things would never truly go back to the way they were. Saving Adrian's life had changed her, pulling her into a world of intrigue and danger she hadn't chosen but couldn't walk away from. Little did she know, the worst was yet to come. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, Mia and Adrian uncovered a name, a shadowy figure known only as the architect. Rumored to orchestrate corporate espionage on an international scale, the architect was a ghost, slipping through cracks and leaving destruction in their wake. Confronting this person wouldn't be easy. In fact, it might cost them everything. But as Mia looked at Adrian, she realized one thing. Whatever happened next, they'd face it together. As Mia and Adrian closed in on the identity of the architect, the tension grew thicker with each passing day. The clues they had pieced together painted a chilling picture. This wasn't just some rogue hacker or disgruntled employee. It was someone who operated like a mastermind, pulling strings from the shadows. Whoever it was had access to insider information about Neuralink's operations, knew Adrian's schedule down to the minute, and seemed always one step ahead. The breakthrough came when Mia noticed something odd in a stack of leaked emails the team had intercepted. At first glance, they appeared to be routine correspondence between executives at rival companies. But buried deep within the text was a pattern, a series of code words that matched descriptions used by Adrian's inner circle. It was subtle, almost invisible unless you were looking for it. And Mia, with her sharp eye for detail, spotted it immediately. "This is it," she said, her voice trembling with excitement as she pointed out the connections to Adrian. "Whoever did this isn't just spying. They're part of your team." Adrian stared at the screen, his face pale. He scrolled through the messages again, his jaw tightening. One name kept popping up repeatedly, disguised under layers of aliases and encrypted references. When he finally deciphered it, his blood ran cold. "It's Evelyn Cross," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Mia frowned. "Who's that?" Adrian sank into his chair, rubbing his temples as if trying to process the weight of what he'd uncovered. "She used to work for me, years ago. I mentored her, trusted her. She was brilliant, maybe even smarter than me in some ways. But she left after, well, let's just say our visions didn't align anymore." He hesitated before continuing. "Evelyn started her own company after leaving Neuralink. At first, we stayed friendly, but then things got competitive. Really competitive. I thought she hated me, but I never imagined she'd go this far." Mia felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't just business rivalry. It was personal vendetta wrapped in greed and betrayal. Evelyn hadn't just wanted to beat Adrian. She wanted to destroy him using any means necessary. Determined to confront her directly, Adrian devised a plan. He announced publicly that he would attend a charity gala hosted by one of Neuralink's partners, an event where Evelyn was also expected to make an appearance. The idea was risky, but Adrian insisted it was the only way to draw her out. If they could catch her red-handed, they might finally put an end to the nightmare. Mia protested at first. "This feels like a trap," she said, pacing nervously in Adrian's study. "What if she knows we're onto her? What if she tries something dangerous?" Adrian placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "That's why you won't be there, at least not officially. You'll stay behind the scenes feeding intel to my security team. I need you safe, Mia. Promise me you'll stay out of sight." Though reluctant, Mia agreed. She couldn't argue with his logic, not when the stakes were so high. Still, the thought of letting Adrian walk into potential danger alone gnawed at her conscience. The night of the gala arrived, and the venue shimmered with opulence. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting glittering light across elegantly, dressed guests mingling below. Adrian moved through the crowd with practiced ease, exchanging pleasantries while keeping a watchful eye on Evelyn. Sure enough, she appeared moments later, draped in a sleek black gown that accentuated her commanding presence. Her eyes locked onto Adrian's, and for a brief moment the air between them crackled with unspoken hostility. Unbeknownst to either of them, Mia was stationed in a nearby van with Adrian's security team, monitoring live feeds from hidden cameras, placed strategically throughout the venue. From her position, she could see everything, even the faint smirk playing on Evelyn's lips as she approached Adrian. "You look good, Adrian," Evelyn said smoothly, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "Success suits you." "Cut the act, Evelyn," Adrian replied coolly. "We both know why you're here." Evelyn raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. Do we? Because last I checked, this is a charity event. Unless you've decided to accuse me of something? Before Adrian could respond, Mia noticed movement on one of the camera feeds. Two men slipped into a restricted area near the stage, their movements furtive. Something wasn't right. She quickly alerted the security team, who sprang into action. Back inside, Adrian continued his tense standoff with Evelyn. You think you can sabotage me and get away with it? He demanded, lowering his voice so only she could hear. You underestimated me. And her. Evelyn's smile faltered for a split second, but she recovered quickly. Her? Oh, you mean that little barista who ruined your plane ride? How quaint. Just then, chaos erupted. The security team stormed the restricted area, apprehending the two men and uncovering evidence linking them to Evelyn. As alarms blared and guests scrambled for safety, Adrian turned back to Evelyn, his expression grim. It's over, he said firmly. We have everything we need to expose you. But Evelyn wasn't done yet. With a sly grin, she pulled a small device from her clutch and pressed a button. Instantly, the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness. In the confusion, she slipped away, disappearing into the crowd. Panic surged through Mia as she watched the scene unfold on the monitors. Without hesitation, she grabbed a flashlight and bolted out of the van, ignoring the protests of the security team. She couldn't sit idly by while Adrian faced danger alone. Navigating the darkened halls, Mia followed the sound of muffled voices until she stumbled upon Evelyn in a secluded corridor. The woman stood calmly as if waiting for someone or something to happen. Before Mia could react, Evelyn spun around, her eyes narrowing in recognition. Well, well, Evelyn sneered. Looks like the hero decided to show up after all. Mia froze, her heart pounding. For a moment, fear paralyzed her, but then she remembered why she was here. Not just to save Adrian, but to stand up for what was right. You don't win this, Mia said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her legs. No matter what you do, we'll stop you. Evelyn laughed bitterly. Brave words for someone who's completely outmatched. Before she could make another move, Adrian appeared, flanked by security guards. Seeing them together, united against her, Evelyn's confidence wavered. Slowly, she raised her hands in surrender, knowing the game was up. As the authorities took Evelyn away, Mia exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. The danger was over, for now. But as she looked at Adrian, standing tall, amidst the chaos, she knew their journey was far from finished. Together they had faced betrayal, danger, and fear, emerging stronger than ever. And though the road ahead promised more challenges, one thing was certain. They would face them, side by side. The aftermath of Evelyn's arrest left everyone reeling. For Mia, the days that followed felt surreal, like stepping out of a storm into an unfamiliar calm. The danger was over, but the weight of everything she'd been through lingered in her mind. She replayed the events of the charity gala over and over again, how Evelyn had tried to manipulate the situation, how close they'd come to disaster, and how she herself had stepped out of the shadows to confront the woman behind it all. Adrian, too, seemed different after the ordeal. There was a quiet heaviness in his eyes, a mix of relief and sorrow. He had trusted Evelyn once, mentored her even, and now he was forced to reckon with the fact that someone so close to him could betray him so deeply. It wasn't just business, it was personal. And though he put on a brave face for the public, Mia could see the toll it was taking on him. Despite everything, life slowly began to return to some semblance of normalcy. Adrian kept his promise to Mia, using his resources to help her pursue her dream of becoming a journalist. He introduced her to influential editors, arranged interviews with key figures in the tech industry, and even offered her access to exclusive stories about Neuralink's innovations. But more than anything, he encouraged her to trust her instincts, the same instincts that had saved his life. Mia threw herself into her work, determined to make the most of this second chance. Her first big story, an investigative piece exposing corporate espionage in the tech world, quickly gained traction. Readers were captivated by her sharp insights and fearless approach. Within weeks, her name started appearing in headlines, alongside seasoned journalists she'd always admired. For the first time in her life, Mia felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. But success didn't come without its challenges. As Mia's profile grew, so did the scrutiny. Some critics dismissed her rise as nothing more than riding on Adrian's coattails, accusing her of leveraging their connection for fame. Others questioned her motives, wondering if she'd compromised her integrity by aligning herself with a billionaire. The whispers stung, especially when they came from people who didn't know her or understand what she'd been through. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of interviews and media appearances, Mia found herself sitting alone on the balcony of Adrian's estate. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. She sipped a cup of tea, trying to shake off the frustration that had been building inside her. Adrian joined her moments later, carrying 2 glasses of wine. "You okay?" he asked gently, handing her one. Mia sighed, staring at the horizon. "I don't know. Sometimes I feel like no matter what I do, people are going to judge me. Like none of this is real unless I prove myself over and over again." Adrian nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. "People will always have opinions," he said, his tone thoughtful. "But you can't let them define you. What matters is why you're doing this. Not for recognition, not for approval, but because it's who you are." His words struck a chord deep within her. Mia realized that while she couldn't control what others thought, she could stay true to herself. She had risked everything to stand up for what was right, and that courage was worth more than any headline or accolade. Their conversation shifted to lighter topics, and for a while, they laughed and shared stories about their lives before fate brought them together. Mia talked about her struggles as a freelancer, the countless rejection emails she'd received, and the nights she'd spent wondering if she'd ever catch a break. Adrian listened intently, occasionally chiming in with anecdotes from his early days as an entrepreneur. How he'd maxed out credit cards, slept on friends' couches, and faced skepticism from nearly everyone around him. It was during these moments that Mia saw a side of Adrian few people ever did. Beneath the polished exterior of the billionaire tech mogul was a man who had fought hard for every inch of his success. He wasn't invincible. He was human, flawed and resilient in equal measure. And somehow knowing that made her admire him even more. As the weeks turned into months, their bond deepened. What had started as gratitude evolved into something neither of them had anticipated, a genuine connection. They weren't just partners in solving a mystery. They were friends, confidants, and eventually, something more. One rainy afternoon, as they sat together in Adrian's library surrounded by shelves lined with books, Mia looked up from her laptop and caught him watching her. His expression was soft, almost tender, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. "What?" she asked, smiling despite herself. "Nothing," Adrian replied, shaking his head slightly. "I was just thinking, you've changed my life, Mia, in ways I never expected." Her cheeks flushed, and she glanced down at her hands, unsure how to respond. "You've changed mine, too," she admitted quietly. "Before all this, I didn't think I had it in me to stand up to anyone, let alone save someone's life. You made me believe I could do more than survive. I could thrive." Adrian reached across the table, his fingers brushing against hers. "Then maybe we saved each other," he said simply. For Mia, those words carried a truth she couldn't deny. Together they had faced betrayal, danger, and fear, emerging stronger on the other side. Their journey hadn't been easy, but it had brought them closer than either of them could have imagined. As the rain continued to patter against the windows, Mia leaned back in her chair, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. Life still held uncertainties, challenges she couldn't predict, but for the first time she felt ready to face them. With Adrian by her side, she knew she could handle whatever came next. And yet, even as they celebrated their victories, there was an unspoken understanding between them. The world wasn't done testing them. Corporate rivalries ran deep, and Evelyn's arrest was just the tip of the iceberg. Somewhere out there, new threats loomed, waiting for the right moment to strike. But Mia and Adrian were prepared. They had faced the worst and come out stronger, bound by trust, respect, and a love that had grown from the ashes of adversity. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, not as individuals, but as a team. Months had passed since Evelyn's arrest, and life for Mia and Adrian settled into a rhythm that felt almost normal. The chaos of the past year, the sabotaged plane, the threats, the charity gala showdown, had faded into memory, but its impact lingered. They were different people now, shaped by what they'd endured. For Mia, it wasn't just about surviving, it was about thriving. Her journalism career had taken off in ways she never imagined. Articles she wrote became widely read, sparking conversations about corporate ethics and accountability. Editors praised her fearless reporting, and readers connected with her authentic voice. She was no longer the barista dreaming of something bigger. She was bigger. Adrian, too, had changed. After stepping back from day-to-day operations at Neuralink, he focused on mentoring young innovators like Mia. He launched initiatives to support aspiring entrepreneurs, funding startups led by underrepresented voices in tech. It was as if saving his life gave him a renewed sense of purpose. He wanted to use his wealth and influence not just to build an empire, but to uplift others. Their relationship deepened along the way. What started as gratitude grew into trust, then friendship, and finally love. It wasn't flashy or dramatic. It happened naturally, like two puzzle pieces fitting together perfectly. They balanced each other out. Mia grounded Adrian when his ambitions threatened to overwhelm him, while Adrian encouraged Mia to dream bigger than she ever thought possible. Together, they built a partnership rooted in mutual respect and shared values. But even in this newfound peace, reminders of their past struggles occasionally surfaced. One evening, as they sat together on the couch watching TV, a news report flashed across the screen. A whistleblower had exposed another high-profile case of corporate espionage involving one of Neuralink's competitors. The details were eerily familiar: tampered equipment, insider leaks, coded messages. Mia stiffened, gripping the remote tightly. "Do you think—" Adrian shook his head, though his expression was grim. "Not Evelyn. She's locked up tight. But whoever inspired her, they're still out there." It was a sobering reminder that their fight wasn't over. The world of cutthroat competition and greed hadn't disappeared because they'd stopped one villain. There would always be someone willing to cross lines for power or profit. But instead of fear, Mia felt resolve. She and Adrian had faced the worst together and come out stronger. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they could handle them. The next morning, Mia woke early to finish writing her latest article. This one was personal, a reflection on her journey from cafe worker to investigative journalist. As she typed, memories flooded back. The crowded airport terminal, the suspicious whispers, the moment she shouted, "Your plane was sabotaged." She smiled at how far she'd come since then. That impulsive act of courage had set everything in motion. When she finished, she reread the draft aloud, making sure every word felt true. Then she hit send, submitting the piece to her editor. Within hours, responses poured in: emails, texts, comments online, all praising her honesty and bravery. Readers related to her story, seeing themselves in her struggles and triumphs. Some even reached out privately, thanking her for inspiring them to chase their own dreams. Later that day, Adrian surprised her with tickets to a special event honoring groundbreaking innovators in technology. "You deserve this," he said, simply handing her the envelope. "And besides, I want everyone to see the woman who saved my life and inspired me to live better." At the awards ceremony, held in a glittering ballroom filled with industry leaders, Mia stood beside Adrian, feeling both proud and humbled. When her name was called to receive recognition for her contributions to journalism, she walked to the stage, heart pounding. Looking out at the crowd, she saw faces she recognized: mentors, colleagues, friends, and realized how much support she'd gained along the way. "Thank you," she began, gripping the microphone. I'm here tonight not because I'm extraordinary, but because I refuse to stay silent when it mattered most. We all have moments where we can choose to act, to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. And sometimes those choices change not only our lives, but the lives of others. As applause erupted around her, Mia caught Adrian's eye. He smiled warmly, nodding in agreement. In that moment, she knew she'd found her place, not just as a journalist, but as someone who made a difference. Weeks later, Mia stood outside a bookstore staring at a display window featuring her newly published memoir, Your Plane Was Sabotaged. The title was bold, playful, yet deeply meaningful. Inside, the book told her story, from the chaos at the airport to confronting Evelyn, from finding her voice as a writer to falling in love with Adrian. It was raw, honest, and unapologetically human. Readers lined up eagerly to meet her, clutching copies of the book. Many shared their own stories of overcoming fear and doubt, telling Mia how her words had inspired them. Listening to them, she realized her journey wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to everyone who dared to believe in themselves. That evening, Adrian joined her at a quiet rooftop restaurant to celebrate. Over dinner, they talked about the future, new projects, adventures, dreams waiting to unfold. For once, neither of them felt rushed or pressured. They had time, and they had each other. You know, Adrian said, raising his glass, I used to think success meant building empires, but now I realize it's about connection, about leaving the world better than you found it, and about trusting your instincts, Mia added, clinking her glass against his. Even when everyone tells you not to. They laughed, savoring the simplicity of the moment. Life wasn't perfect, it never would be, but it was full of possibilities. Together, they had proven that courage, integrity, and love could overcome anything. As fireworks lit up the night sky, marking the end of another chapter, Mia leaned into Adrian, feeling grateful for the path that had brought them here. From that chaotic day at the airport to this peaceful evening under the stars, their story was proof that sometimes the most extraordinary journeys begin with a single act of bravery.